Many of you have noticed by now I've once again tried to go for the bookish background. I don't have a flat that's very conducive to it at the moment. It's very long, it's quite large, but it's thin. And so I have to kind of wedge myself between the desk and the bookcase. And as you can see, it annoys me that here there is this open space in the video. I don't want to move the camera too much there because you see straight through to my kitchen, and I have like my laundry horse there, and you don't need to see all my smalls and stuff like that. And if you do, then perhaps that's something for the what is it, the channel members. I'm only joking, of course. But one of you, at least one of you, has suggested to me that they would be happy to see a shelf tour. Now, I did do one well over a year ago, I think now, and I never actually completed it. So I suppose a library tour, really, but I don't like to call it a library because I have about 3 bookcases and a few odds and ends scattered on the desk and things like that. But so I thought I would do that. Far be it for me to disappoint even one of my beloved viewers. So there may be some repetitions, but we're bookish people. We love to see things, I'm sure, more than once. So there we go. Hello everyone, welcome to and welcome back to my channel, Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and welcome to my shelf tour part 1. Depending on the length of the video, will depend on how far along we get. I aim to do at least this one, and possibly, if there's time this week, this one, because of course you can see there that they would be fairly related in terms of what I have to show you. Now, many of you will probably be annoyed that there's not really much methodology in terms of how my bookshelves are laid out. And yes, that's true. I tried to some degree to do it in terms of publisher or at least type of book. So at least you can see the Penguin Classics have been pretty much put together, as have the Folio Society. But even then, there are still some down there that I haven't put up. And you can even spot one of the Penguin Classics Bibles, if you like, there. So let's go through and see what I've got, and I hope you enjoy it. And as I say, if it's been a bit of a repetition for you from the one I did a year or so ago, I completely understand if you don't watch. But otherwise, I hope you do. Here we go. So the first book is a book mentioned many times on this channel. And as it's my favourite, of course I own several editions of it, and I do have a very nice Folio Society edition of it, and you can maybe guess what it is. It is Jerome K. Jerome's 3 Men in a Boat, and it's wonderful. It's illustrated throughout with lovely colour illustrations of their misadventures down the River Thames. And yeah, a wonderful picture there, for example, of them sitting around planning their trip with Montmorency the dog in the corner there. So it's wonderful, and one of my prized possessions for sure. I won't talk too much about it because I talk about it all the time pretty much, and I'm sure you probably get sick of it. So I'll move on. I'm a big classical music fan, and I'm a very big fan of Mozart. So I did acquire a copy, Folio Society copy of biography of Mozart. However, I'm yet to read it. I did read a wonderful biography of Mozart, which you can probably see here, by John Suchet, the brother of Hercule Poirot, David Suchet. And this has some musical text and things in it like that. Who actually wrote it? Okay. Edward Holmes is the author. It says The Life of Mozart, including his correspondence. Well, I doubt it includes all of his correspondence. I have a book of his letters, and some of them are quite racy. I'll be surprised if they're in there. It has... it's edited with introduction and additional notes by Christopher Hogwood, and it's a 1991 Folio Society book. And again, you have like musical text there, and I really love this inlay there with Mozart. So yeah, there we go. Next up are two books in a 2-volume set, and they're also musical, classical musical. Well, classical musical, I don't know. Some people might debate that, but I'm a big fan of these two gentlemen, and it's the complete libretti of the Savoy operas by Gilbert and Sullivan. And again, they are lovely. It's as I say, 2-volume set. I'll just take out one of the volumes so you can see, perhaps not the most exciting of covers, but inside are the libretti and words and things from the operas or operettas of Gilbert and Sullivan. Obviously, the authors are... Well, I suppose the author really would be Gilbert more than Sullivan, as Sullivan wrote the music generally. It's a 1994 folio. I keep saying folio. What's wrong with me this morning? 1994 Folio Society publication, and it's introduced by Frederick Woodbridge Wilson. And yes, perhaps Sullivan is in volume 2, but there's a picture there of William S. Gilbert. I wonder if Sullivan is in volume 2. Probably. I'm betting on it. What do you think? Be a bit harsh if he isn't. Let's see. Yes, Arthur Sullivan is there in the 2nd volume. Now, I have a little connection to Arthur Sullivan because I used to live in the English town of Camberley, which is in Surrey, and it was the town in which Arthur Sullivan was born in, and he was there. I think he was born there, or at least he lived there in his childhood, but he was there because his father was a bandmaster at the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, which is in the Staff College is in Camberley, where I used to live. And it's kind of a sad thing, really, because the location that he was... I think he was born there. The location that he was born in has been knocked down, and it is now a McDonald's drive-through. So there you go. But at least McDonald's do recognise the fact by having the blue plaque on the building. So next up is another Folio Society, and it's a beautiful one, I have to say, and it's a history book that I'm hoping to get to in the next round of Historathon, and it is by Desmond Ward, and it's The Monks of War. It's one of those folio books you see around quite a lot, but I think it's really beautiful. It has a nice gold spine there, but the picture is really fantastic. Have a look at that. Isn't that great? So this is all about the warrior monks, the Knights Templar, the Hospitallers of St. John, and it's kind of the history of them. So it's very interesting, and all the kind of actions that they took part in. It's got illustrations, it's got maps. There I suppose are some of the illustrations of various crests, maps of some of their campaigns and things like that. So yeah, it is a really lovely book, I have to say. It's almost a shame to read it, and but everybody says that the folio books are extremely sturdy and somewhat indestructible. However, I do find that I am still wary because they're not cheap, and I wouldn't want to. I mean, they're not cheap even second hand. I wouldn't want to risk ruining them. Next up, we have another favourite of mine, and it is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Perhaps not the most attractive. I don't know. I'm not sure I like the brown. I would have preferred it perhaps in black, but it has wonderful illustrations there. So I don't know who did them. Let's see. I think it's someone quite famous. Yeah, it's N.C. Wyeth, is it? Wyeth, who did the illustrations. So he's very famous for illustrating these books. There you can see. Look at that, fantastic. and this is produced by the Folio Society in 1994. So they seem quite old now, but it's harsh when you know that you remember very clearly these years of some of these books that were published in the last century. And then we have some newer editions, but they look nice. And these are the Canterbury Classics. And I have one here, also Robert Louis Stevenson, again in the brown. I don't know why. Maybe it's a suitable colour for the kind of fake leather look, but it's a nice edition. It contains Treasure Island, again, of course, Prince Otto, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Kidnapped, The Black Arrow, The Master of Ballantrae, and David Balfour. So again, it has this nice kind of gilding on the pages, and yeah, the print's not too bad. It is a bit small, but I don't know if you can see it there. I do have hopefully a new camera on the way, so things should be clearer. I never like really ordering online cameras and things because you can't really see how they look, but everything I researched about it said it would be okay, and it has a nice nautical inlay there as well, or what do you call it, frontispiece, is it? No, I don't know, I'm not very good with the terminology. And the next one is also by Canterbury Classics, and it's by an author I haven't read that much of, but I thought, sorry, could you hear me when I was talking there? It's an author I haven't read that much of, but I want to, and I thought it would be nice to get a collection of his works, and that's Jack London. It's a selection of his works, including The Call of the Wild, The Sea Wolf, and White Fang. Now, I've been loath to read them because, I'm an animal lover, and I have my own animal, and I'm always worried about the fate of animals in books, so I know that I will probably be upset reading this, but I do want to get to it one day. Again, beautiful picture there of the wilderness, and the other stories that are included, there's quite a lot of them, I think, so it's quite good value. You've got To the Man on Trail, The White Silence, In a Far Country, The Wisdom of the Trail, An Odyssey of the North, The Law of Life, The God of His Fathers, Batard, The League of the Old Men, Love of Life, The Wit of Porputuk, To Build a Fire, All Gold Canyon, The Apostate, South of the Slot, The Chinago, A Piece of Steak, Mauki, Kolau the Leper, The Strength of the Strong, War, The Mexican, Told in the Drooling Ward, that sounds interesting, The Water Baby, and The Red One. So there we go. And next up, we have another favourite of mine, which is H.G. Wells, and it's an H.G. Wells collection. It is a collection of, I think, 3 of his novels. Instead of a gold finish to the papers here, we have a silver finish, but that looks really nice, and it's a very attractive looking edition. It's by Arcturus Press there. So what's in this collection? I can't remember. Here we go. I think it's 3 books. Yes, it's 3 books. It's The War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, and The Invisible Man there. So, gosh, we're almost at 15 minutes, and I haven't even finished one shelf. Now, you probably saw me take down a couple of books from the top there, and they are these wonderful little penguin paperbacks, and it was a series they produced called Great Journeys, and I can't remember how many there were. I think there were maybe 20 or 21 of them, and I had all of them. However, I feel that probably, my parents sent me some of them, and then I think the others might have unfortunately been either thrown out or sent to the charity shop in the course of the move, so I no longer have a complete collection, and I don't think they're particularly easy to get hold of. But what they are is they are just parts of bigger works, if that makes sense. So this one here by Ryszard Kapuscinski, very great Polish journalist. Oh, it says on the back, yeah, there are 20 of them. And it's from his book, I believe, Travels with Herodotus, which I have got. So it's not a disaster. Does it say? Extracts, okay, but it doesn't say extracts from where. This is the extract first published by Penguin Books. I'm sure it's to say somewhere where it actually came from. I don't know. Apologies, but I think it's from his travels with Herodotus, where he travels around a lot of the places Herodotus was reputed to have gone to, carrying a copy of his work with him. And yeah, so it's very nice. I mean, it's a nice little thing if you just want something to read. There's a segment here from George Orwell's Homage to Catalonia, entitled Fighting in Spain, and I guess it just takes off part of his experiences during the Civil War, and as I say, as an extract from Homage to Catalonia. There's one here from Alexander von Humboldt called Jaguars and Eels. There's Marco Polo's The Customs of the Kingdoms of India, so no doubt taken from his travels there. There's Alfred Russel Wallace's Borneo Celebes Aru, which again would be quite interesting. There's Mark Twain's Can-Cans, Cats and Cities of Ash, and I don't know which one this was taken from, whether it's Innocents Abroad. It might well be Innocents Abroad, actually. So yeah, and then we have another one by Kebaza Devaka, or Devatsa, I'm not sure exactly how you say it, The Shipwrecked Men. So again, that would be taken from somewhere else. And if you're interested, the series includes Herodotus's Snakes with Wings and Gold-Digging Ants, Mas'udi, The Meadows of Gold, Marco Polo we've mentioned, William Dampier, Piracy, Turtles and Flying Foxes. It's a shame I haven't got that one. I would like to have that one. I had it. It's so frustrating, but I can't blame my parents. You can't go away for 10 years and expect them to, hang on to every little thing that you have. Especially when they had to move house, and unfortunately they had to do it by themselves. So I don't hold a grudge. No, I don't. Well, not much of one. Mary Wortley Montagu's Life in the Golden Horn. James Cook's Hunt for the Southern Continent. Olaudah Equiano, Sold as a Slave. Humboldt we've mentioned. Sir Richard Burton, To the Holy Shrines, which actually ties in nicely with one of the books I've got there, which is his personal narrative of a pilgrimage to Al-Madinah and Mecca. So it's probably taken from that anyway, so I'm not missing out, really. Walter Henry Bates is In the Heart of the Amazon Forest. Alfred Russel Wallace, Mark Twain, we've mentioned. Isabella Bird, Adventures in the Rocky Mountains. Anton Chekhov's A Journey to the End of the Russian Empire. And that's one that I read and I don't have, sadly, anymore, but it did lead me to buy his book, which is here somewhere, actually, but I don't know where, about his experiences in Sakhalin Island, just to the north of Japan, which we'll get to at some point, I'm sure, if I continue this tour, if people want to see it. There's Mary Kingsley's The Congo and the Cameroons, Ernest Shackleton's Escape from the Antarctic. Well, I've got a copy of South, so it would be taken from that anyway. George Orwell we've mentioned, Wilfred Thesiger, Across the Empty Quarter, and Ryszard Kapuscinski we've already mentioned as well. So that's those. So I suppose we could go through these quickly because there's not much to say perhaps about the Penguin Clothbound Classics. People have seen quite a lot of them already across books. So maybe I'll just pull one down and just tell you the rest. So that's the Tales from 1001 Nights, and I believe this is just taken from Richard Burton's translation. Maybe not. Oh no, it seems to be various translators. So yeah, so that's interesting. But it is by no means a complete work, right? So I think the Penguin put out in paperback a 3-volume complete collection of the 1001 Arabian Nights, but it's still nice to have, and they are very nice. A lot of people say that they don't really hold up to reading, and I am loath to actually read them. They are kept around just kind of to look nice, I suppose. And, perhaps when I'm ensconced in my library, in my new house, I will be able to just settle down in a nice chair with the, fire on in the fireplace and Elvis at my feet and just, read through these lovely books without kind of taking them around to work and stuff and risking the pattern getting rubbed off. So I have got The Count of Monte Cristo, the Robin Buss translation. I've got War and Peace and Anna Karenina, Tale of Two Cities, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, of course, and also Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens, you all knew that, and Emma by Jane Austen. And then continuing with Jane Austen, I have a nice older version of Pride and Prejudice. It's not as old as Jane Austen. It's from the earlier part of the 20th century, but nice enough. It's got an inscription in it. It's got my great grandmother wrote her name in it, so it belonged to her. So that's nice, and it's the copy I read from when I read through Pride and Prejudice on my channel here. And I'll just show this one because I think it's particularly attractive. It's Charles Dickens's Christmas Carol. It's lovely, isn't it? And I've had it for 2 years now, and it's still intact. It's not rubbed off. And then the others in the Penguin Classic range that continue down here are The Travels of Marco Polo, Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne, Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, The Monkey King by Wu Cheng-en, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which I believe is the 1831 translation rather than the 1818. Then we have the first in our Penguin Deluxe Classics, which is the all-in-one complete works of Jane Austen. So it's all her novels in this one book here. Very nice, I think. It's got the deckled edges, and of course the French flaps are synonymous with the Penguin Classics edition. It's probably quite hard to read in one to have to hold it up and do it. It's interesting though, it's still shorter than the Penguin Classics Les Miserables, and that's all of her novels, or all 7 of them. Is it just the complete novels? Maybe the last one isn't in there. Yeah, okay. So yeah, it includes Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, and Lady Susan. And then another one is the complete Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle, and it's the Vintage Classics edition of that. It's nice. It's not double columned, so that's kind of a bonus, and it has an introduction by P.D. James as well, which would be quite nice. So there we go. And then I'll just run through the ones that were sitting on top of that, and you can get back to doing whatever else you're going to do this weekend. You can see I just throw things on top, unfortunately. That's why there's no necessarily rhyme or reason why I should mention these particular books at this juncture, but I might as well. I have Mary Elise Sarot's The Collapse, which I really hope to read. I hope in November of this year, because it's non-fiction November, and of course all the events of this book take place in November, and it's all about the fall of the socialist systems of Central and Eastern Europe in November of '89. So particularly relevant as I live in the former Czechoslovakia, so it would be very interesting indeed. There's the Book of Forgotten Authors by Christopher Fowler, and in this book he goes through authors who have been misplaced or forgotten People like Marjorie Allingham, who you probably don't know. Virginia Andrews, I'm sure you do. R.M. Ballantyne. Pierre Boulle. Isn't he? He's Planet of the Apes, I think, isn't he? We have. I'm just looking for ones that you may have actually heard of, because you might know more of them than I do. E.M. Delafield, Edmund Crispin, Peter Fleming, of course, Ian Fleming's brother, great travel writer actually. Sven Hassel, from those rather kind of, well, they are very graphic, but I actually found them kind of interesting when I was younger. Although as a younger person, I probably shouldn't have been reading them. Let's see, it goes up from Victorian up through to fairly modern authors there. Richard Marsh is in there, of course. His book The Beetle being the bestseller, I think, of the year that Dracula was published, and far outsold it at the time, but not many people know him today. There's Emma Auxey, of course, Baroness Auxey, who wrote The Scarlet Pimpernel, and others. I mean, you might not know Peter Tinniswood. Idris Shah, I like him. He writes those Nasruddin stories, and he's kind of a Sufi philosopher. And the father of the travel writer Tahir Shah, if you ever read any of his works. Edgar Wallace, T.H. White, of course, who wrote the Once and Future King books. Arnold Ridley, who was Private Godfrey in the Dad's Army series. He was actually a playwright before he went into acting. And then next up, last three books here, we have a Czech classic there by Bohumil Hrabal, which is Closely Observed Trains, or the American version, Closely Watched Trains. Why on earth they thought that the Americans couldn't manage to say the word observed instead of watched, I don't know, but they seemed to change it, and this is a very good story. I mean, it's a tiny little thing, but it's well worth reading. An Oscar-winning film of the 60s was based off it. It does have a few disturbing bits in it with regards to animals, unfortunately, and Hrabal does that, and it annoys me because I want to love him, but I get annoyed over the treatment of animals in some of his books. I know it's only fiction, but I often wonder if it really is, or how much he's writing from life. We have, of course, and I only have volume 1, unfortunately, the personal narrative of Pilgrimage to Al-Madinah and Mecca by Richard Francis Burton, and it's, of course, a record of his infiltration of the Islamic Holy Lands during the Islamic holy places and shrines, rather, during the mid 19th century. And then last up, we have A Time of Gifts by Patrick Leigh Fermor, his classic work where he walked from Hook of Holland, part of his classic work where he walks from Hook of Holland to Constantinople. So, yeah, and it's a nice edition. It's quite an old one. It's paperback, but it's, I think, I don't know, maybe from, I don't know, late 70s maybe. You can see it's quite yellowed and tattered. I don't remember it being mine. It might actually have been my dad's, and somehow it's ended up with me. So, Dad, if you're watching, sorry. Okay, there we go. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm sorry it was so long, but I will be back next week, hopefully, if you want, with a further installment. So do take care, everyone. Bye-bye.